doctors aren't idiots. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam. If you're a returning viewer, hello there. I am so happy to have each and every one of you here again with me this week. If you are new here and this is the first time you are seeing my face, welcome. I make weekly videos dissecting internet nonsense, so if you're into that type of thing, or you like today's video, I hope that you'll consider liking and subscribing. It really helps out the channel and make sure that you never miss another upload from me. Alright, today, we are going to be checking in with none other than Alexandra Rodriguez, because apparently she has some good news for her audience that she is pregnant, but she made a new video talking about fat phobia and discrimination, and that video was titled, Why I Had to Leave My OBGYN. So today, I figured we'd take a look at that video together and just try to add some sanity to the conversation. Now, I'm not going to sit and watch Alex's whole video with you. If you want to watch her whole video, please go ahead and do that on her channel. But what I would rather do is just focus on the little nuggets that I thought were really important to kind of discuss. And so because we're going to do it that way, I just want to add a little bit of background in case you hadn't seen the video. Alex starts this car vlog letting her audience know that she is 10.5 weeks pregnant. Congratulations, by the way. And then she follows that by letting us know that this OBGYN she's been working with, she has had them for a while. She says that she worked with them last year when she had a pregnancy loss and that they were really great to work with and really caring and supportive. So now that she is pregnant again, she sought them out to work with them. And she didn't get the same doctor she got last time, but she got a different doctor at the practice. And all of this background is important because this entire car vlog rant about discrimination has to do with this new doctor at this practice that she loved. Because according to Alex, this is how this new provider started a conversation with her.
And she says to me, you know we have a BMI cap here, right? And I'm like, no one told me this. She's like, yeah, we put it into practice last summer, a BMI cap. And my heart like immediately just sank because I'm like, first of all, I just didn't even know that this was like a thing at some practices. Already, BMI is such bullshit.
As a surprise to no one, we started this immediately with our hate for the BMI. And honestly, again, this is not shocking. This is a regular talking point for Alex and other fat activists and fat liberationists. They really think that doctors are just solely using the BMI to decide if they're healthy or not. They don't seem to realize that it's only one part of how doctors do their jobs, and that is just, it's a long-standing thing. Again, not a shock to me that this was mentioned. If you're curious to learn more about the history of the BMI, I do have that on the channel. I will try to remember to link it down below, but we're not going to get into that right now because, again, it's its own video, so let's keep going.
Health and weight are already not synonymous, but also I'm very heavy because I've been working out since I was like 10 years old. I've been going to the gym since I was a child. I've been on diets since I was a child, but more than anything, I've been working out since I was a child. I recently lost 100 pounds over the last couple years when I had gastric bypass. And I've kept like 95% of it off. So I have a long history of struggling with weight, and I just hate BMI so much because I am very heavy, because I'm very muscular. Like a high percentage of my, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of fat in there too. I'm not saying I'm like not fat, but I have a lot of muscle and it makes me heavier.
Now, I know a lot of people have been ripping into Alex for this particular part of the video because she does sound very delusional here. And I'm not saying I disagree, it's just not what I want to focus on, because I think there's a better point to be made. And that is when fat activists and people like Alex start talking about the BMI and its inaccuracies. One of the main points that they like to make is to look at bodybuilders, right? Bodybuilders, they're muscular, they're considered healthy, and they have high BMIs. So see, BMI is not accurate because they'll be treated differently because they're muscular. But I think the thing that they miss is actually, I don't think that that's all that true. There are plenty of stories and accounts that I've come across online, Shakara Transformations being one of them, who do actually talk about the ways in which bodybuilding is actually not that great for you. And I think the thing I like specifically about Iona's channel over on Shakara Transformations is that she does show some of the bad. When you're that lean and you have that much muscle, there's sleep issues. She'll talk about brain drain, how she just doesn't have energy and the brain function is low and it's hard to kind of get words out. She will actually share those things. And because of that, like, doctors aren't idiots. Like, they are aware that that happens when you're that lean and have that much muscle, right? So again, there are specific accounts of women who are pregnant and whose BMIs are high because of their actual muscle mass and their history of bodybuilding. And they are also deemed high risk when it comes to pregnancy and told to see specialists. And truth be told, they have a similar reaction to the one that we see Alex having. It can be confusing, but that doesn't mean that you're not high risk and that you don't need to see a specialist. So even if Alex were as muscular as she's saying, that wouldn't fix any of her problems because it's based off the BMI. It doesn't matter if you're muscular or not. The high BMI is what makes you high risk. So that office would still have to have this conversation with her and still try to get her to someone who could take the best care of her for a high-risk pregnancy. I didn't mean to cut her off there. Let's see what she has to say now.
And as someone who's worked out now for consistently over the last year, who's worked heavily on eating more balanced, who's lost a significant amount of weight, who has like perfect blood work, perfect blood pressure, like, I just hate BMI so much. I just think there are 1,000,001 other better ways to measure health.
So here again, we see Alex leaning into this doctor is solely using my BMI against me, to discriminate against me, right? That's her story. But I think what I want to remind people of, and I'm sure you're all aware of it, is that the internet is a fascinating place because you're only getting one side of the story. Is it possible that Alex is telling the complete truth and telling the whole story as it happened? Yeah, that could be true. But it's also entirely possible that maybe there's more to the story that she's just not telling us. Maybe this doctor is taking into account her BMI alongside the fact that she's had a previous pregnancy loss, which she just told us about. She's had multiple abdominal surgeries. She's talked about health issues in her family. So isn't it also entirely possible that the doctor looked at all of these factors and talked to her about the reasons her pregnancy would be considered high risk? And isn't it entirely possible that she could have left those bits of the conversation out because those don't lend themselves to a good story time video for the internet? I'm just asking the questions. I'm not saying that that's the truth. I'm just asking what's possible. And here is why I'm asking that question.
And it's honestly just another way to discriminate against fat people and show that society just wants to cater to a specific kind of person.
Now, this is not a fair take on Alex's part at all. And I want to cut her just a little bit of slack because she did let us know that this just happened yesterday. She's still processing it. It was a lot to process. Clearly, she has a lot of stress going on with a previous loss. So I'm going to cut her some slack. But that being said, she still posted her processing to the internet where everyone could see it. And again, I don't think that this is a fair take because this doctor is clearly trying to be as honest and transparent as possible, that they consider her pregnancy a high-risk pregnancy due to her BMI, due to her past health, whatever it is. They've considered it and they've realized either they are ill-equipped or not trained or just don't have the resources to provide the tracking and monitoring and appointment scheduling that would be needed for a high-risk pregnancy. Things can go wrong really, really fast, and this doctor's office might have realized we just don't have the staffing and therefore cannot take on the liability of these high-risk situations. And when it comes to an OBGYN, I feel like that's a pretty important conversation to have, and I feel like it's important and a good thing that they were transparent about it, because it's their whole job to keep not only the mother but the baby healthy. But Alex doesn't see it that way.
And she's like, yeah, we put it into practice last summer, but like there was no empathy behind it. I was kind of expecting her to be like, I know it sucks, I'm sorry, like I don't agree with it, but she just kind of said it in like this tone that was just like, yeah, get out of luck. She's like, at least you're early.
Why would she expect a doctor to say that? Why would she expect that? I've watched this now a few times, and this leaves me confused every single time. I feel like if a doctor was sitting down and having a really serious conversation with me like this, and then they waffled, that would be sending me a very mixed message, and I would leave feeling very confused. And so I don't know why she would have wanted that or expected that. Because to me, again, I don't want to leave feeling confused. And if this doctor didn't agree with this policy, they would have gone and sought out a practice that matched their interests and what they believe and who they want to treat. They have that freedom to do that. So again, I don't know why she would be expecting that from this person, because I feel like that would have been much worse and left her, again, feeling very confused and like not knowing where to go. And that's not what happened. This doctor very firmly told her their policy, told her that they could not treat her, and then even went as far as to tell her that they needed to get her somewhere where they could treat her the way that she needed to be treated throughout her pregnancy.
And I'm kind of just like, I'm kind of panicking at this point, because I'm like, well, where do I go? Because I don't know. I'm freaking out, honestly. I'm like, so where do I go? I just kind of blurted that out, and she's like, well, honestly, blank and blank, it's like another hospital is the only one that's gonna take you, like that. And I'm like, now I don't even have a choice now. That's the only hospital that will take me without a BMI limit. And she said it's because the only reason is because it can be riskier if I need anesthesia during the birth, which doesn't even ever always happen. You know, it's not.
They even went as far as telling her which hospital could treat her, and they shared that the reason for this is that this space has an on-site anesthesiologist in case anesthesia is needed during an emergency. And Alex's response to this left me flabbergasted, because she essentially said, well, how often does that even happen anyway? Is she suggesting that she's willing to take the risk and work with an office who cannot treat her in an emergency situation? I just can't fathom why you would even want to risk that. Let's let her continue.
No, I just think it's, okay, just breathe. It just felt absolutely shocking. And like, I told a few close friends about it, and they were just like, what? And they're thin. They were like, I didn't even know that was like a thing. Like, I would never even have to think that's a thing because of thin privilege.
I think this has less to do with thin privilege and maybe more to do with information and how information is shared. Maybe your thin friends didn't know that because they didn't need to be overwhelmed with that information if their pregnancies weren't high risk. It's not about privilege, it's just that they don't need to be overwhelmed with information that's not relevant to them. And there are a lot of factors that play into that, including health classes that aren't very beneficial and don't actually teach us much about our body's functions. The fact that women's medicine has been on the back burner for centuries. It feels like it's only just now becoming modernized, maybe in the last like 150 years, which is just wild when you put that into perspective. We have these conditions that have run from family member to family member, and we've been told not to talk about them. Our mothers, our grandmothers haven't told us about them. And on top of all of that, we now are being inundated with the media and social media giving us highlight reels on the miracle of pregnancy and birth. A lot of people think that it's just cutesy cravings. You go in, you come out with a baby. Nobody tells you the awful things that can happen to you. Nobody tells you that hormone changes can change the shape of your facial features, specifically your nose. They don't tell you that the hormonal changes can change other things in your body, including the size of your feet. Nobody tells you that if there's an emergency, which does happen, if the baby's in the wrong position, if something has happened with that umbilical cord, if the mother develops preeclampsia, it's a split-second decision to get you in to an anesthesiologist to save your child and to save you. Nobody tells you that. Everyone just thinks it's this bright, shiny, happy miracle, and sometimes it isn't, and it's a shame that people don't talk about that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's not a miracle, but I am saying it's not as bright and shiny as people make it out to be. In fact, one of the most real birthing stories I've ever heard, this is going to be so funny probably to a few of you. I don't know if anyone is into the gaming side of YouTube, but Markiplier, who's well known, his friend Bob, who goes by MuiSkirm, and Wade, who goes by Lord Minion, they have a podcast now called Distractable. There's an episode titled Bob's Baby, in which Bob talks about he and his wife Mandy, her pregnancy, and them going into the hospital, not knowing what to expect, the complications that arose pre and post baby, and just things that they didn't expect to happen. And some of it is hard to listen to, but it is a good listen if you're in the right headspace. Because childbirth is a hard and pretty serious process. And that is why doctors take it so seriously. And that is why doctors have to have conversations like this with patients like Alex. And in typical Alex fashion, she at least acknowledged that she released this video expecting some backlash.
Oh, I don't know. Talking about these things, it's important. As hard as it is, and as much as it opens me up to direct criticism, it's important to talk about, because I genuinely did not know that this was a thing.
I agree that this is important to talk about, but not for the same reasons that Alex thinks this is important to talk about. Because Alex very much took this approach of doctors are fat phobic and this is discrimination. And I am looking at this with that mantra of everything this doctor is doing is to keep you healthy and alive. And in my opinion, this conversation is important because the fat activist and fat liberation movement that Alex falls into with some of this content, their whole platform is about vilifying doctors. They make them out to be these terrible, hateful, villainous people who do not want to treat fat people, right? And they make the argument a lot that fat people don't have access to quality care. But what I would counter with, especially in this situation, is that these doctors are pointing Alex to quality care. Whether she believes them or not, that is exactly what they're doing. And I say all of this as though we're at the end of Alex's video and she's wrapped it up with a nice conclusion for us. But in reality, we're only about halfway through, which is why we're not covering the whole video. So let's look at another nugget that's important for us to chat about.
I have seen so many incredible, healthy, plus-size pregnancies online that people share, and actually that I've even known in person. I just hate this stigma with size and health and pregnancy. And it's not to say that there can't be issues from weight, but it's not always going to be from that. And it's not something that we can always just pin it on, put everything on weight.
Oh no, right away, straight off the bat, just please do not make decisions for yourself, especially important decisions, based off of what you see on social media. Social media is a highlight reel. No one is going to show you the bad parts. They're not going to, because that's not what people want to click on. That's not what people want to watch. Please, please remember that. I wish Alex would have just taken a second. She's been on the internet long enough to know this. Do not make decisions based on someone else's story, situation, scenario, because even if she has plus-size friends that she's seen in real life have very healthy pregnancies with no complications, that does not mean that Alex will have a healthy pregnancy with no complications. I think you have to allow yourself to be prepared for everything. But maybe most importantly, I want to point out, just to remind Alex herself, that this doctor never said she wouldn't have a healthy pregnancy. All of this conversation, no matter how Alex took it in, was this doctor saying, we can't monitor you in the way that we need to make sure you have a healthy pregnancy. That doesn't mean she will have complications. It just means that there's a risk, and it's a risk that this doctor cannot take on, so they want to get her to someone who can. And as if she hasn't said enough without thinking about it first, there's also this.
It was just very dehumanizing yesterday for her to drop this on me.
Being told by a doctor that you have a high BMI and therefore a high-risk pregnancy and you need specialized or more quality care, let us point you to that, is not dehumanization. We just talked about this recently when Anna O'Brien over at Glitter and Lasers thought that a compliment from a random stranger was dehumanizing. None of that is what dehumanization is. Dehumanization means referring to someone as though they're subhuman or non-human, calling them an animal, doing things like that. And honestly, in the state of the world today, if they could just not water down such important concepts and words, that would be fantastic. Because these things are important, and I know that it probably didn't feel great. I know that she was probably in a very vulnerable position. I have been to a gynecologist, so I know what it feels like when you feel exposed to everything. You're extremely vulnerable. You're already stressed. I get it. But the word dehumanization is not it. And I'm gonna let her finish here. We're almost to the end of her video. This isn't quite the end. There's still quite a bit to go. But before she gets there, she shares with us in a different car vlog that she has had a silver lining and she has found another provider that she's excited to work with. It's her reasons for being excited to work with this person that concern me.
But I went to my appointment and oh my gosh, it was great. I absolutely loved the midwife that I met with. And the good thing is I'm able to continue to request her because I really connected with her. I actually felt comfortable enough to tell her why I was switching practices and what had happened to me at the last one. And her reaction was literally, she went, "What?" She goes, wait, let me get this straight. They told you could only gain 10 pounds for your pregnancy and they have a BMI limit? And I was so grateful that she was just so empathetic, and she also confirmed that she agrees that BMI is total crap because of muscle and fat. It's all about, like, there's so many more other factors to health, and her agreeing with me on that and just co-signing my feelings and validating me was huge.
Now, don't get me wrong, I do think it's important to have a good connection and a good relationship to your care provider. It's the "she 100% validated me" thing that I'm a little bit worried about, because it's never good to surround yourself with people who are going to validate you 100%, because that person, if that's what they do, what if they aren't honest with you when a complication arises, because then they won't be validating you? Even if that isn't the case and they do tell her the truth, what happens if that truth doesn't validate her opinions or her experiences or the way she feels? Is she going to be this upset again? It's worth thinking about. In my opinion, everyone should be prepared to have a difficult or uncomfortable conversation with their provider, because at some point they're going to have those conversations with you about something going on in your life, whether it's a health condition or a procedure or a treatment. It might be uncomfortable, and that's okay. But a doctor being honest and straightforward and maybe more blunt than you would like does not mean that they're evil or that they hate you, or that they hate fat people. It doesn't mean any of those things. It means they have something to tell you, so they're going to tell you. It's literally their job. All right, that is all that I have for you all today. At this point, I am curious to know, did you all see this video from Alex? We've talked about her a few times on the channel, and almost every single time she is saying that someone or something has discriminated against her because she is fat. And I'm just curious to know, what do you think that does for the young people who are following her and watching her channel and her story? Do you think it will have an effect on them? Do you think her other doctor was being fat phobic? What do you think about her new doctor validating everything she was saying and feeling? All in all, I'm just hoping that things go well for her and she has a smooth, healthy, easy pregnancy. I think that's all we can wish for anyone. But I'm curious to know what your opinions are, so please leave them for me in the comment section down below. And for all my introvert friends out there who might not feel comfortable leaving your opinion in an internet comment section, I see you, I feel you. Go ahead and leave me some sort of medical emoji. I was thinking about a doctor. You could also do a baby or like a pregnant lady. Whatever you're feeling after you've watched this video. I love seeing your emojis just as much as I love reading the opinions, so please be sure to leave them for me. As always, thank you all so much for being here with me this week. I will see you in the next one. Bye!